The culture of Manchester United, the players, the dressing room, it's been under the spotlight this week after Erik ten Hag banned journalists following leaks from the dressing room. Now, what I want to do in this video is run through kind of an interview with Nemanja Matic, which went under the radar a bit after everything that happened with Ten Hag. But Matic, who is a consummate professional behind the scenes at the club, speaks about how unprofessional it was when he was at the club, to the point where they had to fine players themselves. I'm going to run through what Matic had to say, speak in particular about Paul Pogba and Jadon Sancho, the two players that he names, but also overall conversations about this player power struggle and the unprofessional culture that has existed and torn our club apart from the inside out for a long old time. You can let me know what you think about this in the comments below. But the first thing I want to say about this interview with Matic is, Matic, I think he left Roma a few months ago, didn't he? He's not doing this for particular individual gain. It's not really... This interview was actually released 2 weeks ago. So I don't know whether the British press have been holding on to it and releasing it at a time which will cause more damage, or it's just not been noticed, because it was like halfway through. I've left the link to the full interview, if you can translate it, and you can have a listen to it. But what I want to do right now is run through what Matic had to say. Have a listen. At Chelsea, players acted professionally. They were punctual and were never late for training, but at United, it happened almost every day. Among the players who would always be late were Paul Pogba and Jadon Sancho, and a couple of other players. The rest of us who were always on time were angry, so we decided to form a kind of internal disciplinary committee, with me serving as its president. I put a sheet of paper up on the wall where I documented the names of individuals arriving late. During one particular season, we collected around £75,000 in fines. We had planned to use the money to throw a party in London, but we didn't due to the COVID outbreak. Honestly, my initial reaction to that is just like, kind of, wow. But the wrong sorts of wow. He chose to name Pogba and Sancho specifically. As he said, they were always late. And I'm going to speak about those two individuals. But just like this concept that it got so bad inside the dressing room, and those players who were there and turning up on time, which is your job, as Roy Keane would say, they got so angry that they had to take it into their own hands. It's just that this week it's come into the spotlight. To see that interview from Matic, as I said, it's either perfectly timed or they were waiting for it. Because it's at the same time as you're seeing all these story sorts of... Carrie Solihull's there and Sky Sports. That one there from David McDonnell. And you know exactly what happened as a consequence. Ten Hag banned Samuel Luckhurst, Carrie Solihull, Rob Dawson and David McDonnell from the Chelsea press conference. Because Man United were not contacted for a response. That's why he's annoyed. And Erik ten Hag has been, he's fighting the exact same fight that 5-6 managers before him have fought. And we find ourselves in a very similar situation as a football club as to where we've been before. And fans are in a position where, are we believing the players? Are we believing the manager? And it's sort of like a divisive sort of concept. Now, Henry Winters sort of had his say here, and he says the owners and players like Martial, he's isolating Martial. I mean, look, the reason he's isolating Martial is because he's been here since, 2015? He's just been here that long. And it wasn't his fault that he got that new contract, in the same way it wasn't Phil Jones's fault. That's kind of the failures of the club. But it's just... to hear Matic saying this about Pogba and Sancho, it just gives further evidence towards the continued piling of evidence that we have as fans over these last 10 years about just how bad it is from a professional perspective inside that Manchester United dressing room. And because Matic mentioned him, named him individually, I want to speak about this Jadon Sancho situation in particular, because it feels like this is definitely part of the reason. If there's somebody inside that dressing room that is not with Ten Hag, I think this Sancho situation is part of it. And that's exactly what's been reported there from Carrie Solihull. But Jadon Sancho, right? This is from The Athletic about his time at Dortmund, when he was dropped because he returned late from international duty. This is Michael Zorc, the sporting director of Borussia Dortmund, explaining how much difficulty he had in dealing with Jadon Sancho. And this right here was from David McDonald's article here. The article that got him banned from the Chelsea press conference. And it's just, I find it so strange that this little snippet is part of that. Despite being banished to train from the academy facility, Sancho is said to have maintained his fitness and is training like a beast, according to one source, with several of his teammates wanting to see him reintegrated back into the Ten Hag squad. I swear that's the exact same turn of phrase they use for Donny van der Beek. But it's just, again, it could well be a coincidence. But it just seems very oddly timed. Where are these leaks coming from? And then all of a sudden we're seeing that Sancho's training like a beast being explained in the same article. Jadon Sancho, rightly or wrongly, your decision now, is not in part of the Manchester United squad. It's not that I needed more evidence, but Nemanja Matic has explained right there that he was constantly late at Manchester United when he was a Manchester United player. Erik ten Hag has said that his training levels were not quite up to scratch. Jadon Sancho decided to completely disagree and said, no, I am training properly. And it's been a it's been a divisive problem for a long time now. So I'm not surprised to hear this from Nemanja Matic. And as well as Jadon Sancho, Paul Pogba was named. And Paul Pogba, wow. Like if you're talking about sort of talented individuals, there aren't going to be many that you can name as a United fan that you're more frustrated about that it didn't work out than Paul Pogba. Now, I know the problems certainly weren't all his. I've spoken sort of at great length and depth. Man, the whole Pogba versus Mourinho situation, the fact that I don't particularly think we signed correctly around him. But at the same time, as Nemanja Matic has just explained there, he would always turn up late. And for all his qualities as an individual, you constantly had questions about his approach, his attitude. And Matic is just giving more evidence towards that. So it's because of the Erik ten Hag banning the journalists has come out at the same time as this interview has come out. And there are so many questions about the culture of this football club. And truth be told, I imagine the majority of that squad is behind Ten Hag. But there are bad apples there. And they have been bad apples under every single manager post Sir Alex Ferguson. Imagine Fergie had some bad apples as well, but he got rid of them. David Moyes, dressing room lost. Louis van Gaal, dressing room lost. Jose Mourinho, dressing room lost. Solskjaer, dressing room lost. And Radnick, he was the interim manager. I'm not sure he ever had the dressing room. Dressing room lost. And Erik ten Hag, dressing room lost. There is one consistency between all of those, and that's the players and the culture that exists inside us in our club. And this is something I've said quite a few times now this week after the whole banning the journalist thing. Ten Hag there is fighting back against the culture that players have of when things aren't going right, they can feel like they can go to the press and sort of exert, I don't know, get something off their chest, makes them feel better. Doesn't help the football club though. Doesn't help the manager though. And that there is a culture which Ten Hag is fighting against. So it's just, it's as I said, the timing of this interview from Matic is, I mean, it's yet more evidence that United fans don't need more evidence. But the evidence just keeps piling up and up and up. And when you're seeing performances like that against Newcastle, you're like, wow, what is going on there? I know that Ten Hag's tactics, there are questions, and I've said that there are problems that he has been causing and he can fix. But it's not justification for that. It's not justification for constantly turning up late to your job. I mean, that will get you disciplined, it'll get you sacked in certain situations. So much so that the other players put a bit of paper on the wall and fine 75 grand. Sod knows what it was. Maybe you turn up late, it's a grand fine, whatever it is. And we can only speculate on that. Also, he's saying that they were going to throw a party with the money, but it didn't happen due to COVID, which should mean that season was COVID came in March 2020. So it must be in that 19-20 season. Wasn't that when we were killing it as well? I swear that was when Martial, Rashford and Greenwood had like 70 odd goals between them. Either way, it's just more evidence from another completely different source from Matic, who doesn't really have an agenda against United. He's just speaking about his time as a professional footballer, his time at Chelsea and his time at United, and the differences between them. This is the culture that Ten Hag is fighting against. And I just continue to encourage fans to support him in that fight. But Erik, it's on you to get that team playing better. And I think there are tweaks that you can do. But what's your reaction to this and to the news about my bad, wrong one there. News about Pogba and Sancho and that culture. What's your reaction to it? I've let you know my thoughts. Please, as always, let me know yours in the comments below.